Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm excited for my guest that I have on today. We're going to get into a little bit of a back history about him, but Christopher Robbins, thank you very much for joining me, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
For my listeners who may not know who you are, let's dive into a little bit of back history about you, kind of how you grew up, and then obviously how you got into your CEO of Familius Publishing. So I want to get into that. So a little bit of back history about you, and then obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to hear about your family as well.
Sure. Well, I'm first a husband to a wonderful wife, and I'm the father of 9 children, 6 sons,
wow.
six boys and 3 girls, and ages 30 through 12. So it's been quite a ride. I have a company called Familius. It's a book publishing company. The mission is to help families be happy. And so we do books that lean into that idea. I've been in publishing since 1992 and grew up in Utah, love backpacking, fly fishing. I'm playing a number of instruments, and anything that's adventurous or just unique or fun to do, I'm there. And I've tried to help my children explore the world around them in the same way and help it be a little bit better than it is.
Awesome. Wow. 9 kids. Okay. That's a balancing act in itself, on top of, trying to run a company. I have 2 boys, both, they're both grown, 23 and 20, but you've got quite a range there in ages. How do you balance all that? I mean,
yeah, well, I don't think you do balance it. First, I'd like to know if 9 kids if I have the record for the most kids as a dad on your podcast.
Yes, you do.
All right.
That is the record.
Great. I win. I don't know what the prize is, but I win. I don't think you can balance. I've found that with 9 kids, that every child comes to you completely prepackaged. You think, well, they must be similar because of coming from the same parents, but they're radically not. And so I can see that you've got best coach ever. You have to learn to coach to the player, right? You have to learn who that player is. You have to learn how to coach to the player. And sometimes we succeed and sometimes we fail. And what we try in one doesn't necessarily work on the other one. But it's been a great joy. It's, a family's your greatest joy, and having those kids is just a constant source of entertainment. And it's not just, we've had 9 kids, 5 left. 1 came back for just a short period of time. He's with us right now. But when I come home, there's still 9 or 10 people here because the younger ones bring their friends and they're in the fridge. They're at the dinner table. Sometimes they'll come in and my kids won't even be here, but there'll still be 4 or 5 kids from the neighborhood. Now, what are you doing here?
Right.
Well, you have food. So anyways, great.
That's awesome. Now, did they all play sports? I mean, my boys played sports. That's why I have best coach ever. I coached, all their teams all the way up even through high school. Were they involved in sports and all that?
I come from an athletic family and a musical family. My dad was a terrific athlete. He played football and Nordic combined skiing for the University of Utah. My mother was a musical prodigy and performed in New York and had her own television show. So we both have athletics and we have sports. So people say, you have a baseball team. Well, we also have an orchestra. So yeah, we've done a lot of sports. My older ones, did quite a bit of wrestling, football. And then as we went along, when you get that many kids, it becomes a lot harder to have organized sports that you pay for and you're actually driving them around. And so it slowed down, but yet we constantly engage in sports. So like yesterday, we had some neighbors over and we have a volleyball net in our front yard and we were playing volleyball or throwing the baseball around or something like that. I also, make sure that we take time in the outdoors. I just last Saturday took my daughter, my last child, she's 12. I took her to a fly fishing camp and she and I helped her learn how to develop that skill because it's something I really love. And 3 of my 9 kids, 2 girls, 1 boy, have fallen in love with fly fishing. And so that's a lot of fun. But we also play instruments. And so, every child has had to learn an instrument in addition to the piano. They all play the piano, and we also have a cellist, a violinist, violist, guitarist. So That's you want them to be well-rounded. You want them to be able to take skills with them for their entire life.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I can imagine 9 kids, especially if they're, playing sports or whatnot, the difficulties of trying to maneuver through practices and getting them to their practices and their games and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you and your wife were able to manage that as well as you could. Were there times where you just couldn't obviously be at everything? Because, for me, it was important to be at everything, but I only had 2 boys. So I can imagine that there's going to be somebody that's going to be missing out on having, a parent or family member there. How did you manage that?
Well, again, you do your best and forget the rest. So like with my second son, I picked him up every day from his football practice and drove him home, and he played the same album every time. And so I listened to it like over 1,000 times. It almost ruined it for me. It was Cat Stevens' Tea for the Tiller Man, which I think is one of the greatest albums ever written. He almost ruined it for me. But I would go to every game, right? But then as more and more came, it was harder. So for example, just last week, our 6th son had a choir concert. At the same time, my 4th son and I are in a musical, Into the Woods. Well, I can't beat it both. So Michelle took care of the choir concert. I took care of Into the Woods. And so we've had to divide and conquer a lot of the time. And that's been okay. We can't always do everything, but they know that we support them. But we do our very best to make sure that we can, if we can.
Yeah. Did you coach anything? Were you able to coach any of their sports?
Yeah, I did. I grew up as a diver. So I dove in the Olympics and dove all the way up till I was about to go to college and had some scholarship offers and decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. After so long, you kind of get burned out. Right. But yeah, I coached diving, and then I just coached soccer, and those are those are always just really fun experiences, right? And my focus was not so much on winning; it's just having fun with the kids, and we did have a lot of fun. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Also involved in scouting. 5 of the 6 boys earned their Eagle Scout award, and the 6th has completed everything except for 2 months of time. My dad was an Eagle Scout. I was an Eagle Scout. So that's been another great opportunity in our family to just focus on the skill sets of scouting.
Well, that's cool. That's another great area or way to bond with, our kids, not just through sports, but scouts is a great opportunity to just, for father and son to kind of get together and do the things that are involved in scouts. I was a scout as well. I didn't get the Eagle Scout, but I was a scout as well. And my older son was involved in scouts. My boys just kind of gravitated towards sports. And one of the ways that I wanted to be involved as a dad is, I figured since I've got to take him to all the practices, I got to take him to the games, and I get to watch their games and all that, I might as well get involved. And so that's why I did. It's funny, when my older son was about to play Little League, he was just about to be 4. And I went to the table to sign him up, didn't know anything about sports or about coaching anyways. And the guy at the table said, hey, you consider coaching, helping out on the team? And I said, no, I've never coached. And he goes, dude, they're 4. All you got to do is teach them to throw and hit and run bases. They're going to be playing with the grass and all that other sort of stuff. So just help them out with the basics. You'll be fine. And I'll never forget it, Christopher. I was driving to the first game, our very first game. We'd had several practices, our very first game. And I was telling my wife how nervous I was because it was my first game as a head coach, not knowing what to expect. And back then there wasn't as many resources to look up, how to coach and all that stuff. Now they're all over the place, but I did what I could on researching and stuff. But over 20 years of coaching sports all the way up through high school was the greatest joy part. It was the greatest joy of my life, just being able to spend time with them and kind of help them learn. My younger son got a scholarship playing basketball in college. So it's just a really, really cool part of my life that I really enjoyed. I'm now retired. I just retired a couple months ago. I gave up coaching for good, but my younger son's about to be a junior in college, and I was still coaching at the high school level. And I figured, over 20 years, it's time to focus in other areas of my life. And so I retired, but yeah, something that I'm proud that I did, and got my boys and I just a chance to bond together. So really cool, really cool. I wanted to ask you about Familia. So what made you kind of start that? Was that something you were always interested in? I mean, how did you start the company? What drove you to start that company?
Well, so entrepreneurship is part of my DNA, but books have always been a major part of my life. Every gift I was ever given from the time I was a child from my grandparents, both sides, was a book. And so I fell in love with books, and might have been destiny that I was named Christopher Robbins and I'd be in the book business. But so, I just, you kind of just get into things, right? And you get into book publishing and writing, and it's kind of like a river. Your career just kind of takes you places. But I had managed a couple of other companies. I had run a company called Gibbs Smith, which was a great company. It is a great company. I ran it for 16 years. And when the Great Recession hit in 2007 to 2012, I had to really work hard to keep that company alive. And by the time I was done, I just kind of was burned out there. And I had this idea. I just walked out my kitchen door one day, and I just kind of had this. It wasn't a vision, but I kind of had this vision of this company that was in the book industry, took advantage of some of the disruption that happened because of the recession, and was focused on something that mattered to me. So as I published books over 20 years, they were usually high-end design, high-end cooking, architecture, things that I enjoyed. And my kids said to me, "Why don't you ever publish a book that we'd actually read?" Okay, well, so maybe I ought to do that. So in 2012, in January of 2012, I began the process. And February 15th of 2012, I launched Familius with the whole objective of doing books that help families be happy. And so that again, we do a lot of parenting books, we do children's books, board books, interactive board books, and gift books. And the whole idea is just, we don't take ourselves so seriously that every single book is just a hard-hitting book about how to help the family be better. But we think, the family that eats together stays together. So we have cookbooks, the family that reads together stays together. And we have these 10 habits of happy families, and, love together, work together, learn together, eat together, play together. And so the books all fall within those ideas and those habits. And we believe that if you cultivate those, that you're just going to have a happier family. And so I think the world is so distraught and so anxious, and it's just challenging. And I just wanted to do something that mattered. So I guess I'm a social entrepreneur. I try to do good in the world and still make money doing it. So that's where I are. And it's been good. We've been 5 years in a row, one of the fastest growing independent presses in the country.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you though, as I've gotten into kind of the podcast world, and especially, revolving around being a good parent, I'm doing it now for about 2.5 years. And I've noticed just in the last 2.5 years, a lot more parenting books are starting to surface. If parents kind of had this idea of maybe writing a parenting book or maybe a children's book, what would be your recommendations to them if they're wanting to get into it, wanting to look into it, but really don't have any means of how to go about it? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because, not everybody thinks they can be a musician, because they may or may not know how to play an instrument, or be an athlete. But everyone thinks they can be a book writer because they can actually pick up a pencil and start writing. My first recommendation is, if you want to be a writer, you want to publish a book. Well, if it's in a particular genre, where it's mystery or romance or children's fiction books, or just general fiction, or a parenting book, go research the best 100 books in that category and read them all. That will be the best way to understand what it is you're going to be doing. Then next, make sure that you have some kind of platform, because there's lots of ideas in the world, lots of ideas how to be a good parent. But it really helps to have a platform that you can leverage to help people know that your book or your ideas exist. So it could be a good podcast that has a strong following, or other social media avenues that you've leveraged that can help. And then, just so that's always the best thing. So then once you have that and you've got a good platform and you know what you're going to create, and the best thing is to create an outline. Don't write the whole book yet. Just write an outline and a pitch, and begin working with, find the publishers who do that type of content. I can't begin to tell you how many times I receive a submission from content that we would never, ever even think about publishing because it doesn't align with our mission. And so you can research companies. And if you look at those 100 books, there's going to be somebody one of those publishers that, leans into that idea that's most similar to yours. Well, that's who you should start targeting, is companies like that. And then just get involved in conferences. There's lots of writing conferences, lots of children's writing conferences around the country and the individual states. And those are great ways to network and have a group, critique your work and constantly improve it. Publishing is a trade. It's a trade like any other trade that we used to be journey. You'd have an apprenticeship and you'd learn. It's something you have to constantly work at to be better and better at. So those are a few ideas I'd recommend.
Well, those are great points. And I wanted to ask you though, on when it comes to Familius, what separates Familius from other publishing companies? Why should, if somebody wants to look at, aligning with a publishing company, why would they choose yours over another one?
A couple of things. So I'd say number one is the mission. So I've never found anyone who said that they didn't want to have a happy family. So,
right.
So that mission is very intriguing to people, and so they like it. They get involved in it. Second is the quality of the book. I mean, even if you look at our end sheets are full color end sheets, are always designed. We really take pride in making sure the book is an art piece, that it's not just a consumable. And third, I think it's important to understand that Familius, people have in some ways, different sides of the aisle have weaponized this idea of family. And Familius I'm a religious person. Familius is not a religious company. Familius publishes books that will help families be happy, regardless of what kind of family you have. We just want people to have good habits in their family. We want people to respect each other and love each other and forgive each other and spend time with each other and learn together and work and serve together. And so that's what I think sets Familius apart, is that we're a company that targets families, but across the board, we want people to be happy.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a great mission for your company. Something that people would obviously love to align with if they're looking to getting into writing some sort of either children's book or parenting a book. So that's awesome. Kind of going back to your parenting style though. What kind of I guess lessons that you learned from your own parents? Obviously, you've been a parent for a while now, and you've got some experience as a parent. But were there any lessons that you took from your own parents that maybe you use now as a parent, or maybe there were lessons that you didn't use or chose not to kind of incorporate into your parenting style?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you froze for me for just a second. If you'll just repeat.
Yeah. So what kind of lessons did you take from your own parents that you now incorporate into your parenting style? Or maybe there were things that you did, you chose, that's not the route I'm going to choose for my kids, so I'm going to go a different route.
I come from a broken home. My parents divorced, separated when I was 4, and I think divorced when I was 5, and both of them remarried. And I was very fortunate to have my parents, who I love deeply, marry people who were better partners for them than the original spouse. And my stepfather raised me, and he spent more nights out under the stars on a bedroll on the Arizona Strip than he ever did in a room. He didn't have electricity until he was 16 years old. And he was a rancher. And I learned how to work from him. I mean, I learned how to love work, just to create and build things. So that was tremendous value there. And that he spent time, he loved me. My father, and all of them, all but my stepmother have all passed away now. My father just died 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
My mother, her parenting style, was, just loving beautiful things around, seeing beauty and being able to communicate that beauty to me. My father was also a hard worker. My stepmother is tremendously positive. She's always positive. That's a great attribute. So what's my parenting style? Well, obviously, I'm a hard worker. Obviously, I try to be positive, optimistic. I try to enjoy the beauty around me and share that with others. But what I do with my kids, and is not every parent has their own style, but my kids know that I have some little phrases. They'll say, "Dad, I can't do this problem. I need you to help me with this problem." And I'll say, and I know that we've already taught them how to solve this problem, right? We've given them the foundation. We've given them the skill sets. And I'll say, "Hey, I need you to pretend that there is no one here to solve this problem but you, and your life depends upon solving this problem. And I bet you can solve this problem." And, they can usually solve the problem, right? So we always give them help, but we try to make sure that they have a foundation. So the other thing I'll say is I try to teach correct principles and let them govern themselves. We're not necessarily afraid of our children making mistakes. We don't like them to make really big, tragic mistakes. My son made a big one just this last 2 days ago. He's a scuba diver and many other things as an adrenaline junkie, and he made a mistake in his calculation in his time underwater and in his elevation, and he was put into a decompression chamber for about 10 hours because he had the bends. He had decompression sickness because he didn't pay attention to something really important. And so, we try to avoid those catastrophic mistakes, but and he's doing better. But the point is, I said, don't ever judge a man by his youth, right? We all make mistakes, and your kids, they got to make them. And you just got to make sure that they at least make them intelligently, that they know what they're doing, right? So I try to teach them the principles, and then let's see what they do. And then hopefully I know why Dad said not to do this, or I know why Dad said to do it this way. And my stepfather used to do this for me. We'd do this job, and by the time I was about 3/4 done, he'd say, "Hey, would you like to know an easier way to do that?" And he did that because he wanted me to experience how hard it was to do it one way, so I could appreciate doing it a different way. So I don't know if I'm a great father or a horrible father. I'm probably somewhere in between. I love my kids. I want them to be successful. I want them to do good in the world. And we do the best we can. If anybody's listening, I'll tell you one thing that I know works. And besides just loving your kids, love them, love them, love them. No matter what, just love them. But is take time to have family dinner. If you can have family dinner together and sit around that table, it's kind of like the family boardroom. There's a lot that can happen there.
Yeah. I'd love that. I think it's super important. I mean, obviously it's us being intentional with our families, not just with our kids, but with our spouses, just us being intentional with them. The family dinners are obviously a great opportunity to do that. The other opportunity that you have with your kids are the car rides, right? I mean, we're taking them to sporting events, or maybe we're going on family vacations. Those car rides, I've talked about it many times on my show, they're stuck in a car, in a box with you. So those are great opportunities to not only bond with your kids or with your spouse, but just have open dialogue, communication, talking, just kind of sharing moments, or maybe talking about things or issues that may be going on, or maybe there's, whatever it is, the car rides are another great opportunity. So I think those are great lessons, teaching our kids that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. We learn through those mistakes, and we maneuver through them to get better as human beings. And I think for us as parents, it's important to know that, hey, it's okay for our kids to make mistakes, allow them to make mistakes, and be there as their guide, as their support system. I've told my boys their entire lives, I don't care what you do wrong or what you didn't do. The fact is, I'm going to be your teammate through this whole process until the end. So I'm here to support you. I'm on your side, and I will give you guidance and support and love as much as you need me to be there for you. So I've always told my boys that. We've always had that kind of level of communication and openness between each other. So it's great that you're doing that, especially with 9 kids. Holy cow. So you're dealing with not only a wide range of ages, but you're dealing with a wide range of personalities too. Obviously, some are going to be like the others, but for the most part, their personalities are all going to be different. And you're having to try to maneuver that as a parent. So kudos to you and your wife.
Thanks. If you have that many kids, you can expect something almost every day. I used to get phone calls. My wife would say, "I'm calling to let you know that everything's okay, but we are in an ambulance and are on the way to the hospital."
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Yeah. I mean, I've had not quite ambulance, but I've had a few calls where it's been pretty. My older son at one point when he was in high school got rear-ended really bad driving home from school, and he was fine, but it was one of those conversations that he didn't have a cell phone on him, so he had to use the police officer's cell phone to call me. And it's kind of, you're in panic mode all of a sudden because you want to make sure your child's okay and they're being cared for. But yeah, I can understand those moments are scary for a parent. Well, really cool. Christopher, if my listeners wanted to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, maybe learn a little bit more about Familius, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, honestly, the best place is to go to familius.com. That would be FAMILIUS.com. It's just a play on the Latin family. And go there. There's tremendous resources. There's a wonderful blog, or we have a podcast. There's a lot of book content. And of course, you can learn about the Familius family and who we are and what we try to do. And if you have a great idea and you think it's worthwhile and you've got a nice platform, you can always send that to bookideas@familius.com. And we respond only to those that we think that we're sincerely interested in, because we receive thousands of submissions and there's no way we can possibly respond to every single one, but you're always welcome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, Christopher, thank you very much for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I look forward to watching, Familius kind of grow into doing the things that it's doing and continue to grow further and helping people out there become public or become authors. So it's really cool what you're doing, and appreciate you being on the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you. You have an awesome day, and best of luck with your family.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys very much for joining me on another episode of Dad Up. I appreciate my guest, Christopher Robbins, for being on the show with me today. Make sure you guys are checking out Familius website. If you're interested in writing a book or have an idea, reach out to them. And if you have something that they're interested in kind of pursuing, then they'll reach back out to you. But make sure you guys are checking out what Familius is doing. They're doing great things over there. And obviously, as always, make sure you guys are subscribing to my show, not only my podcast, on iTunes, Spotify, all those places, but also to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing there. Would love to hear your feedback on the show. And like always, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Dad Up. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel. And please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you and see what you think of the show. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes each week. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Dad Up Podcast.